Okay, so I wanted to talk about just actually one more thing about the Bagua, one final roundup video, because I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the scientific crossover, why I think the Bagua is helping my spine so much. So a little bit of background on me. I have an associated science that is a kinesiology heavy pre-med degree. And it's and I also have a study in personal training. I've been a personal trainer for like 15 years. And I've also had to learn to walk over and over and over again. I estimate, um, in 16 cancer related surgeries, if you count every little drainage hole, every little cut, but also the major, huge cuts, um, I estimate that it was 64 cuts in 16 surgeries. Um, and I've had to learn to walk over and over again. I've had this quadriceps, a quad and a half really removed. I'm missing an inch and a half of length, um, and they they've redone this chunk of bone. My point is, on this point, is that I've had a lot of physical therapy as well. I've studied physical therapy with quite a number of physical therapists, world class ones too. Sometimes down there at Children's. So, I'm not hyper educated from the scientific perspective on these things, but I did want to make that crossover for you all for just a moment. If you've ever taken a back injury, hold on, I'm going to move this carpet. It's a little bit dirtier than I want to rest into. If you've ever had a back injury and you've gone to a physical therapist, you've probably run into one of a sequence of exercises. And I'm just going to demo them really quick. They resemble the crane exercises and certain elements of the Bagua. So the first one, I think I've got my angle there, yes. So I'm going to suck in this lowest belly and then practice this. That should sound pretty familiar. If you've been playing with the crane stepping, it should look pretty familiar. And then there's a sequence of these kinds of exercises. I'm going to just run through them quickly just to show you an example. So the next level up, once you've got that one sort of developed and mastered, is to actually bring your legs up. So again, you've got this sort of a thing, very similar to that crane stepping. And then you've got this one. I feel like my form's not great there, but. And then there's actually one more. I should have brought my lift out, but I'll do it without the lift. And the last one, again, all of these, you're sucking that gut in and you're keeping that low back flat to the ground while you're doing those side. And you'll flip it around. There's another one on this other side that does this kind of a shape. And that's hard without my lift, but you should be looking at those and going, oh yeah, there's some really similarities between sucking that gut in, keeping the low back flat, and the crane stepping and lifting. So in a proper sense, I think the Bagua is really helping me because it's a higher level. It's a next level up of the same thing. One of the things that's changed is that we're going to have weight all the way on one side of our spine and then up the other side. So yang on the full side and yin on the empty side, yang on the full side. Yang full side, yin on the empty side. So the addition of weight and the angle of keeping your feet pretty close together. And then I think especially the spiral, whether it be the really extreme spiral or the really small spiral. That is to say, whether I'm walking a really big circle way out here that has only the slightest bit of a spiral to it, or if I'm really turning those coxal joints and really kind of, walking on that small spiral and really working the hips internal and external rotation. All of that stuff is like a level up from these back exercises. So if you've ever had those back exercises before, you're probably seeing what I'm pointing to right now. And if not, I would encourage you to just go maybe look around. You'll actually find these exercises as part of personal training programs and stuff as well. So I wanted to say all that and just make that scientific connection to why I think it's helping my spine so much. Um, and just show the similar sorts of exercises that you might do if you were if you went and saw a physical therapist. And I think it's worth saying out loud again, the crane stepping is great, and it really is very helpful. And sometimes I chunk it down, like I'll get a lift. I should have brought this lift out. Let me grab one really quick, just make it a little easier for me here. Use my So I might, to chunk it down, I might just get a lift, and I might actually just take my basic postures and actually just practice shifting weight without even really pulling my leg up. And so when I'm doing this, I'm really, really just working this stuff down here. And this is what we would call chunking down, or well, I've heard called, which is breaking it down into a simpler set. That's the same thing I did on the very first time we were doing the crane stepping, where we're just going to hold still and stand. And then you don't have that extra effort of learning how to walk in a spiral and so on. And so chunking down and chunking up are both fantastic aspects. And this whole art and mass is really a chunking up and a really more complex version, mostly, of those physical therapy exercises that I was referencing. And the second thing I wanted to say, okay, so setting that aside, that's the physical therapy-ish scientific side of things. Oh, and sometimes walking fast and keeping those crane steps down, not doing the crane step, just doing the close, low walking here. Sometimes that works better for adjusting my spine than the crane stepping, and sometimes moving a little faster or a little slower. So chunk up, chunk down, and explore the variations. Okay, I think now I said everything I wanted to say about the physical therapy side of things. The other thing I wanted to mention today was just, so there are a handful of other very simple Bagua exercises that I will come around and teach at some point. But Bagua, it's interesting. Some of the moves that come along are fantastic for your spine if you do them right, and hell for your spine if you do them wrong. So I'm not going to deal with those until quite a ways further on, but I probably will attend to them at some point. They are helpful. They are a next step up, and they're part of my lineage. Having said that, speaking of lineage, I actually did run into um, somebody who had trained with T.Y. Peng many years ago, and who affirmed the belief that I had come to about which the final two stances were and what they were doing with them. So the T.Y. Peng system is pretty chunked down Bagua system. It's very simple, and it's not particularly. Some systems are very, very developed. His is really a simplified version on a certain level. Well, anyway, the last two stances are done with a sword in the hand, and they both have a complex sequence that works with them. But hey, I will come back around to those final two stances eventually too. I don't want to deal with them now just because I've given enough of the Bagua to deal with for now. And again, I am going to seek out further instruction. This is the art that I'm most excited about because it's taken me from having such a gnarled up back, so much pain, to so much less pain. So I'm very excited about it, and I wanted to share it. And yeah, so that was a big bit off chunk of the Bagua stuff. I'll probably link it all in my account into a playlist for people who want to come back and work through specific playlists of stuff. So yeah, that is it on that for now. And we'll take up more of the Tai Chi. The next sequence we're going to go through will be basically looking at a lot of Tai Chi movements to develop. A lot of these things are about developing a softer body, or in certain ways, or a stronger body in some ways. And so there's a lot of solo exercises that are very helpful for developing that. And we're gonna be working through those. Simultaneously, we're gonna be really looking at movement quality. What movement quality really defines soft martial arts? Because if just taking the balance isn't soft martial arts, judo people do it all the time. Jiu-jitsu, every style does taking the balance at some point. So it's not that. And it's not about just joint locking people, because that's in other styles. And so what is soft and hard martial art? And one of my primary arguments would be that it has to do with with movement quality, how well you're actually moving your body and what you're bringing. So that's what we're going to be focused in on for the next good while. And we're going to probably cycle between Tai Chi exercises and Aikido exercises until we've really developed that sequence. But I probably won't get out another video. I might get one more out before the end of the month, but I'm sure once Christmas comes I won't. So anyway, thank you all.